Hi everyone! It's been 9 days since the start of my lacquer allergy, and I wanted to do an update because I'm finally in the recovery phase of this whole experience. I'm really happy that this whole experience, this whole ordeal is almost over. It has been a very trying and exhausting experience just because it wasn't incredibly painful or anything, but it's very much an inconvenience not to be able to use your hands, especially when you're at a workshop, trying to work and do things and make things where your hands are very important. Just as a warning, I am going to be posting photos of the whole experience. So if you're sensitive to photos of severe rash, blisters, medical issues, that sort of thing, please proceed with caution. I don't want to upset anyone. The whole timeline, on the first day, it was just a rash on the back of my hands and wrists. They were a little bit itchy, but I didn't think too much of it. By the second day in the morning, I noticed that the hands had become very swollen. And by noon, I remember thinking the skin was feeling very tight from the swelling. The rash had also spread to the right side of my face and ear. By the evening of that second day, the blisters had started. They were starting on the back of my hands and wrists. So they weren't popping just yet. That happened on the third day, where I noticed the right side of my face became very swollen, as well as my eyes were starting to swell a little bit. The blisters worsened and they were starting to pop. So that left my wrists and the back of my hands, excuse me, quite wet with the liquid that came out from the pop blisters. I had to make sure to keep them dry, and I also bought some iodine disinfectant because I didn't want them to get infected, of course. By the third day, the face had become incredibly swollen, and I could barely open my eyes that morning. When I saw myself in the mirror that morning, it was quite a shock. The blisters continued, and the rash had spread to my inner thighs as well as the back of my knees. Where the blisters were, it was painful, but where the rash was, it was itchy. So my entire body was just this big ball of being in pain and being itchy. On the fifth day, the blisters still continued, so they would grow. The blisters would appear, and then within a few hours, they pop, and then new blisters would form. So my entire wrists was just it was just a mess. The whole area was a mess. And the swelling caused the wrists to be very stiff. The swelling was also it was the wrist, the back of my hands, and the fingers as well, which meant I couldn't form a fist to hold anything. I couldn't hold my toothbrush. I couldn't hold my hair comb. I couldn't turn my wrist very well to tie back my hair or to hold chopsticks. I could practice the Guqin still because you don't really need a lot of wrist movement for that, but certain finger structures were a little difficult by this point. On day 6, I didn't notice any big changes. Things just kind of stayed the same. And then by day 7, I noticed some of the swelling had started to decrease in my hands. The eyes were open now, back to normal almost, so the swelling on my face had mostly gone away by then. That day, there were a few new blisters, but not too many. So I think by day 7, the body had gotten over the worst of it and was slowly starting to recover. But I did notice that the rash now had spread to my stomach, the hips, where the legs join the torso, that area, as well as my breasts. So the whole front of my body was just giant rash, this itchy rash. By day 8, there were no new blisters. So now I was in full recovery, and where the blisters had popped, I was missing skin. So new skin was starting to grow there. The swelling in my hands had gone down a lot now. I could almost form a fist now. And the swelling on the right side of my face and my ear was gone. And day 9, which is today now, I'm still in recovery, so my face is pretty much back to normal now, thank goodness. The rash on my neck is also mostly gone, but the rash on the rest of my body, like the torso and the thighs and the knees, are still there. That's still very itchy. Swelling on my hands are pretty much gone. I can hold a fist. It's back to its normal size mostly, but as you can see, the wrists are still in recovery. So those dark areas are where the skin had gone from the blisters and new skin is growing. I'm keeping it moisturized with some Vaseline. Otherwise, it's really dry and it's quite painful. So I'm hoping within another maybe 2-3 days that the wrist area will be back to normal. I'll have full function of my wrists again. Luckily, my teacher and my other 2 classmates have been amazing. They've been offering me tips on, keeping the areas clean, keeping them dry. They've been very sweet to keep me away from most of the hard work. Anything with the lacquer that they've been doing this past week, they've asked me to stay away from, just like watch from the sidelines so I know how they do the steps for later, but not actually do anything with the lacquer myself. I've mostly just been focusing on practicing the Guqin and then helping with carving out some of the wood. I'm very happy that this whole thing's almost done. I'm sure there'll be a second allergy though, because throughout the whole process of making a Guqin, there are several steps where you need to be in contact with the lacquer. And you can wear gloves, we do. You can wear masks, again, we do that. But just from it being around, when you put the Guqin in a room and there's like 10, 15 Guqin drying in a room and it's all lacquer, it's just kind of in the air. So you can't really avoid it. And so there's going to be a second time. I'm sure there's going to be a third time. Like I said in my previous video, my teacher's been doing this for 10 years and he still gets an allergy if he works with it for several days at a time. The best that I can hope for is that the next time will be lighter, because this time I did my very best not to use any medication. I did use a bit of cortisone cream. Otherwise, I didn't take any antihistamines. I didn't take any allergy meds. I didn't go to the hospital for anything. So I'm hoping, because I managed to mostly get through it myself, my body will have built even just a little bit of an immunity and the next time won't be as bad. I'll be getting slowly back to posting as regularly as I can now that this whole thing's over. If it happens again, well, I'll let you guys know. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.